Okay, so we are having a interesting chat today, and I wanted to hit the button because there's some interesting things coming up. Mike, you were talking with folks over at the Satanic Temple, and there's a lot of really cool tenets that they stand for, like the second one, right? Which deals with the pursuit of justice in society. And you wanted to go into a little bit more about what your interest is in that field. So please talk a little bit about these entities, these energies, these concepts that have existed in history as to your understanding and why you're associating with them. Please.
All right. As you know, many people probably don't, but with everything I'm going through and my transition the last couple of years, I did reach out to the STS or the CST, the Satanic Temple, and they've been. I signed up for their mailing list, and over the past week or so, they have been sending me some things, and I've been reading them, and I agree with all seven of their tenets to begin with. And the very last one, I guess, which was today, asked me if I would like to join. So I went and filled out a membership. Hopefully, I get in. You know, but it gave me the idea. People are, already asking, how did I come out of religion? How did I get into Satanism? Why do I believe in what I believe in? And I thought maybe I would do a video to clarify the fact that they have the wrong perception of who these people are. Like, it's not what they believe. Like, which is why I'm a sorcerer. Nobody ever tells you you want the religion that King Solomon built this god's temple with 300 demons by a ring that he wore. You know what I mean? Nobody ever tells you that. You've got to go do your research and get into Hebrew and follow Torah and Talmud and, the Haftarah and stuff like that. And like I said, it wasn't until after my journey that I realized all this stuff. And so just to make it easy for people, that way when they come to the Academy of Sorcery page, they'll know why the Divine Sorcerer is in fact a sorcerer and does what he does. You know what I mean?
Right.
So when we look at Lucifer, this is like, it's all about kind of vision, but let's go into it. It's much more than just vision, right?
Right.
Something as a winged child pouring light from a jar. There's an engraving by G.H. Freza in 1704 of this Lucifer pouring from a jar.
Okay.
And in Roman folklore, Lucifer means light bringer in Latin. Okay, it was the name of a planet, Venus. Though it was often personified as a male figure bearing the torch, the Greek name for this planet was variously Phosphorus, also meaning light bringer, or Theosphorus, meaning dawn bringer. Lucifer was said to be the fabled son of Aurora, Cephalus, and father of Sex, right? He was often presented in poetry as heralding the dawn. The name Lucifer is not a real name that appears in the Bible, but Latin versions of the original word, this is where we get into Hebrew and Latin, the mixture. The Latin word was used Hallel, right? Which means the shining one. The name Lucifer appears in the King James version of the Bible and meaning light bringer, as given. According to Madame Blavatsky, it is Pope Gregory first, Pope Gregory the First, that made a connection between Lucifer and Satan, right? When interpreting the only appearing mention of Lucifer in the Old Testament from a passage of Isaiah that says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, Lucifer, son of the morning?" Look into that verse. A lot more than what they're telling you. Which is a passage criticizing an Assyrian king, not some
Okay.
spiritual guy that runs a bar that's all hopped up on sex.
You mentioned a name in there. I just want to point out a name. Kal-El, right? You said that?
No, Keplex,
Okay.
or
Okay.
Kepelas, Kepelas,
Okay.
that would be.
Yeah, I thought there was another name that you had mentioned that struck me when you said it was the Shining One.
Let me see here, the shining. Hallel,
What is it?
Hallel, Hel.
Okay.
Hallel. which means the shining one.
Gotcha.
Right?
Sounded a lot like the way that the echo is on my sound system. It sounded like it was the what was it, the original name of Superman for a second. It's like, what?
Yeah, my mic's like, I gotta work on my mic yet, so.
Oh, no worries, bro. No worries. Sorry to interrupt you, but
No, you're good. You're good. Right, anyway, the passage was criticizing an Assyrian king, right?
right.
And whether the Pope knew that or not, he may have had some insight in the esoteric nature of this. But the Catholic Church knows a lot more than what they put out there.
Right. I mean, that's where Zechariah Stitchin's work on the Assyrians, the Sumerians, and formative history on this planet is in certain cases more accurate because it contains the full registers and lists from the ancient world.
Right, right. So now that we know that Hillel is the shining one, Lucifer, the light bringer, right?
Right.
Revert back to a passage in Revelation 22:16, where it says, I, Jesus, have sent my angel to give you this testimony for the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright morning star.
Interesting.
Very, right? Why would Jesus have said that he sends his messengers, that he's the offspring of David, and bright morning star?
Interesting.
So now that we know that the morning star is Venus, which has also been associated with Lucifer, again, why would Jesus make a reference to himself as being the atheist of God? Why would he be associated in any way with Lucifer?
Right.
We can find the answer to this question through the mentalism course. I can kind of searching.
Excellent.
Lucifer is another word for phosphorus. Right? The Latin word corresponding to the Greek phosphorus is Lucifer. Goes much deeper than that, guys. I'm getting ready to go into it. Phosphorus is a name meaning light bringer. It is the morning star. When phosphorus is combined with the elements below and carbon, guess what, guys? It forms our very DNA. Think about that, right? When combined with oxygen and hydrogen, carbon can form many groups of important biological compounds, including sugars, lignins, chitlins, alcohols, fats, aroma esters, carotenoids, and my favorite because it's in cannabis, terpenes, right? With nitrogen, it forms alkaloids.
What?
Alkaloids.
Okay.
Alkaloids.
Alkaloids. Okay. Yeah, your X's are just not.
Right, right. And with the addition of sulfur, it also forms antibiotics, amino acids, and the chemical code carriers of life. The adenosine triphosphate, the ATP, the most important energy transferring molecule in all living cells, right?
Right.
Lucifer is another word for phosphorus, right?
Right.
So the Latin word corresponding to Greek phosphorus, again, is Lucifer. Phosphorus is a name meaning light bringer, the morning star. When phosphorus is combined with the elements below, we already read that. What I want you to understand is you have phos, and then you have porous. Porous, right? We'll get to that. The Hebrew word for Satan, we need to talk about that now. Okay? Now we know a little bit about Lucifer. Let's look at Satan, because these are the two big main fucking demon evil entities here on Earth, right?
Okay.
That are going to give our soul and send us to this fiery pit and like, oh, we're going to regret being Satanists and la la la, right? So the Hebrew word for Satan means adversary, as one who stands against another. You can read that in Kings, 1 Kings 11:14, where it says, and the Lord raised up an adversary against Solomon, Hadad the Edomite. He was of the royal house of Edom. At other times, this name is translated as a proper name, such as in the book of Job. Job 1:6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. So the Hebrew word for Satan is Ha-Satan in Hebrew. Now, let me break down what Ha-Satan in Hebrew means. All right, the prefix het means ha, means the, right?
Right.
Which identifies the noun, which comes next, which is Semitic tet lucifer, all right, meaning Satan. Not a proper name, and should therefore be translated as the adversary or the adversary.
Right.
However, there's one verse where the word Satan could be translated as a proper name, and that's 1 Chronicles 21:1. Satan stood up against Israel and incited David to number Israel. Right? So, when we look at Israel, there's been many and many of adversaries. There's been many of Satans that have been against Israel. There was Egypt. There was the Neo-Syrian Empire. There was the Neo-Babylonian Empire. And there was the armies of Nebuchadnezzar II. There's a lot of Ha-Satans that came against Israel. And so, in this verse, the word Satan does not include the prefix ha, and could be translated as a proper name. But upon further investigation, we find that this verse is also recorded in 2 Samuel 24:1, where the adversary is identified as Yahweh.
Oh.
All right. Is that kicking in yet?
Oh, I love it. Okay, so the God of the Bible won the war, but the God of the Bible is the Lucifer of the First Testament.
Oh,
Okay.
you can read this for yourself in 2 Samuel 24:1, where the adversary is identified as Yahweh. It says again, the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he incited David against them, saying, go number Israel and Judah.
Okay. And it's like I want to just pause right here and say that some of my best friends, some of the most profound and impactful people in my life, come from the Jewish faith. Like, they've kept me, like, I just love, and all of the Kabbalah and all of the magic and the way that they've structured like, that's a thing I get behind. You know, and there's a high holy day coming up on Monday, so that's I spent an entire year, Mike, going through the high holy days to do an alignment to those energies to see if I could tap into that magic, right? And holy shit, is that profound stuff.
I spent 4 or 5 years in the Judaism tradition. Like, when I came out of Christianity, I started to learn, like, all the religious, the Sabbath. I kept the Sabbath religiously. Like, didn't eat pork. I still don't eat pork today.
Yeah, pork's dirty. It shouldn't be eaten. But yeah.
Like, I mean, I lived the Jewish Torah lifestyle for almost 5.5 years, maybe.
Yeah.
A little more than that. And that's kind of how I got to being a sorcerer and met King Solomon. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And the thing about what we get up to is, and the difference between the Kabbalah, right, where that's about understanding and communion with the higher forces. Well, in our work, we work with them. We are co-collaborators with those energies, so we're not trying to submit on a knee in the same kind of service-oriented way of those faiths. So this is where we step outside of that, and we get to be our own whatever we are in order to be able to serve whoever or whatever we are required to at the time. It allows us to be freer agents of what is necessary, because, again, when it comes to your terminology of the Ha-Satan, right, that's the primary foundation of the order that I'm a part of, right? Like, we've got a few members all over the world, but the adversarial thing is the challenge, right? And so this is why I love challenges, and why I find the challenge framework of going online and doing the thing and going into the communities, right? In essence, what these profound Christian men are doing when they run a challenge is they are tapping into the adversarial capacity of the individual against their state in the way that they think that they are versus the way that they will be when they're done. And so by the time that they're done with that event, they are a new person. They have gone through a transformation cycle, and they are no longer the same individual on the beginning that they are on the end. And that is the divine spark of the challenge. And that's one of those things that the adversarial nature is necessary to be able to engender, right? And so this is where the Yeshua's Ha-Satan, I totally understand. Because Imhotep in Egypt, and his medicine and his architecture and the way he was the social structure, was also that same member of our order from the ancient days.
Right.
And so it's really fun finding all of these things out.
Right. And one goes further than that, because if you look, Jesus, Yeshua ben Nun himself, was the adversary of the Jewish council. He was preaching against, he was preaching the magic, he was preaching how to do himself, he was preaching, all this. He was the Ha-Satan of that era. Basically, like I am today with, going against the bull crap bulls that, they give you a license and then try to extort you. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Like
lies that are out there in the world that people are, like this. Lucifer and Satan, you're going to hell. That is a lie. I just gave you a proof of who each one is. Lucifer, you're Lucifer. You're made up of 666. You are the number of a man. You know what I mean?
Right. And I mean, if we're in physical form, that is our chemical nature. If we are in a human body, and we are not in the body of an Anunnaki, and if we're vibrating on the rate where we interact with humans on this world, we have to get a job, we have to obey state laws. Those are requirements of our species.
Right.
In the same way, there are ancient requirements that date back eons in recorded history.
Yes.
And it would be nice if people stopped with the cognitive dissonance in relationship with this stuff. Wouldn't it?
Thank you. Thank you. You know what I mean? And like I said, that's just a little bit of why I stand with the Temple of Satan.
Right.
Because I like their tenets. You know what I mean? They're logical.
Yes.
Moral. You know what I mean?
They get out of their fields and into their work.
Right. They're out there doing. They're out there, do you see the churches out there doing?
No.
No. Many of them are just standing in the pew collecting their due and lying to the people. That's all they're doing. They're making a career out of a made-up story of an actual tradition. Because that's what you can call Christianity. It's taken from the Jewish tradition.
Right. I mean, the idea of living an ideal so much that you would die for it, right? That they're putting up Christ to do, is martyrdom. It is a form of extremism. It is a modern form of extremism that is terrifying. Because while there are some of us that are willing to do whatever it takes for their craft, like myself, I'll put myself on the line every time I need to when it comes to how I'm doing my magic, how I'm doing these kinds of things. Because that's what it takes as a sorcerer to be able to command the reality around you. You need to be able to do it to the gods themselves. You need to be able to face down the spirits, we'll call them the Anunnaki, but you need to be able to deal with whatever those entities are and not cower in fear.
Exactly. Fear is your biggest enemy.
It is, because if you've got fear, then you don't have an understanding, and the whole thing is to understand.
That's the whole Lucifer symbol. Vision.
Yep.
Understand.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And that's why when, hopefully people see this video, that's why when they see this video, they understand why I'm a sorcerer. Because I took to King Solomon. Why I am a Satanist. Because I understand and I agree to the tenets of the Satanic Temple. You know what I mean? I understand both characters, and my life I live like that. Why not join them? Why not join in the fight?
Some people don't want to join in a fight, but for those that do, this is a viable path to heaven, because this is what is our, in certain cases, purpose, right? Because there's a time when people have to go through the shadow work and they have to go through that period of growth, right? But they also comes a time when you stand and fight.
Right.
And how we choose to stand and fight, right, goes counter to what normal people think. words are better in some situations than violent actions marching in the streets. I would much prefer words in powerful rooms to change the dialogue so that way we don't have to go to war in the streets. Because anybody that's been through war in any kind of capacity never wants to go fucking back, and all these idiot fuckers that are in the streets calling for civil war don't have a goddamn fucking clue what they're asking for.
No, they're thrilled they get a gun and get to go raise hell.
Right, and that's no, absolutely fucking not. There needs to be a change. There needs to be a social order adjustment. There needs to be a way that the people and the people in power have these interactions, that they go back into these rooms and then they create the change for the people.
Right. It's like, as we witches say, as above, so below. There's a hierarchy here on Earth, but it's tainted. It's corrupted. You see what I'm saying? So This is the bad, where above is the good, the holy, the almighty. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's why there's going to come a time that this shit show is going to end. It's going to end.
Right.
It's the as above, good and bad. There's no balance. You know what I mean? Like,
the thing about, okay, so let me get on. I got a little bit of a tangent for you on this whole infrastructure war collapse thing that we've got going on, right? So my tangent is, I love the concept of a Bitcoin currency. I love the internal currencies, right? So when we're in our ideal state with the academy, okay, future planning, right? There'd be a couple of different locations across the world where people would be able to go learn blacksmithing, regional crafts, antique histories, things like that, where they get to learn those old traditions about what the native folks or what the local tribes or what the ancestral cultures are and what they believed or how to do those crafts, right? In locations where we've got the blacksmith forge, we've got the stables, we've got the agricultural, it's an experiential time to go learn how to take those principles and apply them to modern infrastructure, so that way we can create a preservation, right? Now, the whole concept of the Bitcoin thing versus modern society and what the government needs to do is that there needs to be a new form of bond structure that comes out in the same way that there was war bonds back in the day, right? People have to have a trust in the country, in the currency of a country. And by them switching all of their money out of modern currencies into these digital Bitcoins, giving wealth to new people, they're also creating an infrastructure collapse in the country that they live in. So the more that they invest outside of the country, the more the country suffers. So the states need to come together in a new kind of way. There needs to be a new kind of prosperity that's built for all peoples, inborn in the kind of relationships that are these peasant pagan relationships, where it's people like me teaching people like you on Medicare, Medicaid, whatever, how to succeed better without compromise of who their character is inside, while still maintaining some sort of social connection, some sort of positive uplifting effect, so that while they might have an adversarial approach to things, that in itself is not bad. Taking a gun to a school is bad. Trying to take over the fucking Senate building on January 6th, very fucking bad.
Very bad. Very bad. I agree.
But doing it in a courtroom, doing it in a political spectrum, to change public opinion, to change the laws on the books, that's good. Because it creates a stabilized structure.
That's the correct one.
And this is the problem with fundamentalist bullshit, is they would rather burn the establishment down than take the time to figure out the words that are needed in the right rooms.
It goes back to the conversation we just had, I think it was yesterday, about there's no love in the world. People would rather solve it through violence and that way, than actually sitting down and hashing it out, coming up with the pros and the cons and why it should be and why it shouldn't. You know what I mean?
Right.
Courtroom. Like they have councils, like they've had for many, 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 many years. They have it up there. You know what I mean? That's why you have the Almighty, and then you have the Almighty's hierarchy, and underneath that you got more angels and more. You know, it's structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's not down here.
Right.
It's everybody out for themselves and how many can make the most money and don't even worry about the citizens. You know what I mean? It's just how much money can I bring in. It's basically what it is. That's why when dude sent all them immigrants over to Martha's Vineyard, they got kicked out. Where's the transparency? You see what I'm saying? Like you welcome people, but you're throwing people out at the same time.
Right. And
hypocritical.
again, this is where I would love to have an Academy Resource Center, right? That would be state funded, that we could get immigrant nation peoples coming to, so we could teach. We could be the ones that are instructors. Like our method of collaboration with the community, developing relationships and inroads with the community in a bunch of different forms, allowing people their profound faith to serve others so that they can take the information and then they can go back home and start businesses. They can go back home and rebuild their communities. They come out during the wars times, they come here to learn, and then they go back home to rebuild.
Right.
After the conflict is over, after the people in power that have ruined the societies and their homeland, right? I'm looking over at the Middle East at this one, right? Anybody where they've got these mass exoduses like the Sudan and Iraq and Iran and Pakistan, all these places that have been massively abused by Russia, by communism, by greedy assholes trying to rape shit out of the earth that should never have been dug up in the first place.
I agree. Why treat Mother Earth that way?
It's like the earth is an organism. It is a living thing. All living things are connected in a conscious level. They share the same air. They share the same water. We share the same basic food groups.
We came from the earth. Like, you're destroying the same way of being that you come from. Does that make sense to you?
Right.
That does not make sense to me.
Right. And it treats humanity like a virus. You know, it's a virus that attacks its host. It's like this is why we have, this is why, again, when it comes to behavior protocols, this is why I love to have them all, right? Is because you've got this book of ancient, like, don't get too drunk at a party, don't be that bad friend, give gifts to your good friend, like, be the guy that everybody wants to be. Like, it's this mentalism that gets you in the right spot to behave in accordance with tradition, right?
What's that word?
Right? And this is why we study the traditions, but we build our own.
Yeah.
Because it's the individual that has the onus to incorporate a tradition in their life that uplifts and elevates those around them. And if you have to be an adversary to the situation in order to be able to change something, to get them to click something, then so fucking be it.
I agree. Totally. Like, you know my status on the earth. You know what I mean? I rely. Mama Earth takes care of me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Things need to be done here, and they need to be done properly.
Right.
And it's not being done properly. And
No. Not even a little bit. But again, this is why I love Pedro and all those men of profound faith that started the Academy's professional model, right? Is because it doesn't matter what their background was. Like Russell's a Mormon. There's Pedro, who's now he's a Christian minister. Like he got ordained over the last few years and actually has become a preacher. And so he leads with his profound faith. And, he's very much in tune with there is no separation between him and God. And that union between the consciousness of the individual and the divine force they're trying to walk out, he calls it Jesus. He calls it Christ. I got no problem with that because he is leading with a faith that challenges other people to listen. He's created, He's the world's best challenge guy. Documented. How do you become the world's best? You gotta go to Funnel Hacking Live and you gotta win awards on the stage. Like, dude just won a 2 Comic Club award. That's $10 million on a funnel.
Wow.
One website, 10 million.
Right.
So, yeah, there is a lot going on. There is a lot to business. But that amount of money comes from how many people he has served.
Right.
Right? It's like Dean and Tony are running a model built on a framework I created, right? There are millions and millions of entrepreneurs using that framework now because they had the resources of the kingdom, so to speak, right? You know, they have the billions, they have the money, they have the tech skills, they have the contacts to where all they have to do is pick up a phone and their famous people come and talk on their stuff, right?
Right.
They've got those resources. I don't. And so the academy, as it builds out, uses the resources of those senior levels of the community, right? But to challenge the state of the individual of faith while they're in their business development state, while they're in the development of who they are and what they're doing, so that they have the very best resources to do their thing so they can practice it perfectly from the beginning. And they can get that kind of traction that you get.
It can be done.
It can be done. And you've done it in 9 months and 25 days.
I have. The fall of the broken man to the rise of the divine sorcerer.
Oh, that's it. Oh, that's it. So yes, absolutely. I absolutely support you joining the Satanic Temple if you maintain the challenger, the warrior spirit, right? Because you have a reason to fight for your home, right? Soldiers fight for a cause. They'll fight for a god. They'll fight for a country. They'll do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But a warrior is different.
Warrior's created.
Exactly. A warrior is a lot by circumstance, I believe. You know, it's like it's a path of awakening. You can either submit, be a slave. Nothing wrong with that. Some things are worth that kind of service, but that should be an election. That shouldn't be forced on you because of your skin color. That shouldn't be forced upon. That should be a kink thing, not a I'm going to ruin your life thing, or I'm going to take your entire tribe and enslave them. No, absolutely not.
Right.
Like, if I'm in the bedroom and I got some guy's got a collar around my neck, absolutely, fucking right, go for it. Outside of that, absolutely not.
Exactly. I mean, there's a long line of ancestors that came behind me, or came before me, that made it possible for me to be here today. And they didn't make it possible for me to be here today just for me to be on the sidelines or to be content. Right. I have a strong belief in the way I'm living, a strong belief in the last 10 years that I've walked through that Christian era, that Judaism era, now back into my paganism. You know what I mean?
You know,
and with all of that, it needs to get out there. It needs to be told.
It does.
The injustice that's being done to me, the people using the police as a weapon against me, like, that's wrong in itself. They were never to be formed and used as a weapon.
Oh man. Like, when I was growing up, my mom used him as a weapon against me. A couple of times.
That's the wrong mentality. Again, mentalism. You know what I mean? Like, it's just wrong.
Yeah.
But if I can go from being uneducated and just doing to who I am now and doing, guys, it can be done. It's just how bad do you want it? You know what I mean? Who are you? Do you even know who you are? That was a journey in itself. That 8 months of shadow magic, of finding me, you know what I mean? Like, that was the hardest 8 months of my life. I couldn't tell you how many times I just wanted to give up. And that power, that energy, no, it's not what I'm here for. You know, millions of ancestors did not come before you so you could just give up.
Right.
You know, it's not your blood. My blood is screaming right now. Literally. You know what I mean?
Yes, I understand that. I
Right.
get that. And, it's like we've been on a half hour on this subject, a little more than that, and it's a never-ending subject.
It is.
But it's the individual that allows for it's like we can connect to the divine intelligences of other worlds. We can call upon Ashtoreth. We can call upon Beelzebub. We can call on Belial. We can call on Beelzebub.
Right.
We could do all of these kinds of things and name these entities, which are essentially children of the gods, right? The Nephilim and the Fallen and all these things that are not specifically human. They're part of the world that came before, right? And so they're the remnants of the things that have survived in a higher dimension or a lower dimension, depending on what they survived doing, right? Like, if you're in a war and you get to cause some damage, use demons. Let them destroy the shit. That's what the Druids would do. Like,
Go to the temple. Go to the ring.
right.
Do.
And that's working with, that's like gifts with those things that are attached to this planet that we can honor if we study the traditions of honoring, right? Like, if you're going to work with the Nasir or the elves and things like that, there are offerings that you give. If you're going to work with dwarves and gnome, there are offerings you give. If you're going to work with the Lua, if you're going to work with the Cent, if you're going to work with all of those things, they have their own shit you got to do, right?
Right.
I don't work with those things because I want to make friends with them on my own if they come up. But when they do come up, I want to know if I have to do a thing, who am I going to need to come into that thing, right? And I'm talking about the Saxon terminology where it's like it's a political, it's a stand, it's a commentary, it's a what we're doing now, but with more of us to do it.
Yes, a collective.
And it's those things. The academies of the ancient days are groupings of people where they come together to discuss and act upon new change in the communities.
Yeah. And that's what I'm doing, trying to do.
Right. And so as you get involved with the Satanic Temple, it will be really fun to see how I can help you with that in your local area. And I wonder about getting involved with the local scene here. I'm thinking that could be some fun. Because...
You know, since day one, I fucking love the Batman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's just, why do they get to have the wings? Why do they get to be those species of things that no longer exist? Why do they have to be murdered off? Or why do they have to be hidden behind a veil of not being able to see them?
Right.
It's sad.
It is. Very sad.
So, learn it like... It's exactly like what they say in some of the books, where thoughts get projected from them into your head when they're in your presence, like you're in their presence. Like, they talk at you. They don't talk with you. They just tell you shit.
I can verify that. Like I said, I got to revert back to the multiverse with Dennis. That video. Like, and I'm standing there, as like I'm sitting here today, and everything around me is on fire, and I'm like, I didn't say, hey, why am I not burning? You know what I mean? Thought in my head, why the fuck am I not burning?
Right.
And just that quickly, the answer was, bam, there. You know what I mean? You're an energy.
Right.
Thank you. Okay. And then I can step through the door. You know what I mean? I wasn't taking another step until I realized why I wasn't burning.
Right.
And then I went through the door, and that's when the timelines were stacked. Like, I can remember this clear as day. When you converse with these energies, like, and you see these visions, like, it's a whole new realm. It's a different aspect in life. You know what I mean? Because, yeah, that was kind of crazy, but exciting at the same time.
It's like sticking your head in a wormhole is never a pleasant experience the first time, but I'm glad you did it, and I'm glad that you've come through that experience.
Like I said, in the beginning of it, it's almost like that movie, that Never-Ending Story, where he's flying on that thing and there's a whole bunch of clouds, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah! Okay.
It's almost like that when I first closed my eyes and I had the energy of the crystal and I'm sitting there. It went from the regular dark, patchy, like snowy thing that you see when you close your eyes.
Right.
It went from that, and it just suddenly got lighter and lighter. Where again, I got to revert back to when I died in the hospital. I was above the bed watching everybody run around. You know what I mean? I didn't have no gravity. There was no weight. I was just there. And it was just that same way. Even though my being was here, I was in another place. My energy, my aura was in another place, yet still here. My physical being was still here, but I was like, I don't know. It was like just clouds, all kinds of clouds like around. And then it was like I was set down on that balcony with a whole bunch of flames. And the first thought that came into me is, why am I not burning? Right away, you're an energy, you know.
Yeah.
Like when they talk to you, it's neat. Like that was the first real experience of actually communicating with a god, and it was awesome. It was completely awesome.
Right? So there are truths that are tangible with the teachings I give. You know,
Yeah.
it's like this stuff. It's not just sit around rah, and it's like, you know, I don't. It's, people need to explore it. Like people need to have courage. Like the courage can't be taught. They have to have courage.
Go to the cognitive dissonance. That's the first thing that must go. Realizing that there may be a possibility of something other than what you believe, something that contradicts what you believe. You know, and you've got to be willing to take a look into that and kind of go with it for a little bit to see whether it's real or not. Because that's exactly what I did. And then, you know, like I said, once I did and I got into it and I enjoyed it and I understood it more, and it's like, yeah, crack, man, I need more, you know.
Right. You know, and it's like shunting your consciousness through the multiverse.
Right.
I mean, that's just an afternoon spell. Like that was just like, okay, well, let's show you what you're working with for real. Like there should be no division between the Magus and creation. And all of religion, all of the structure, all of the people, all of the systems, all of the traditions and orthodoxy get in the way of the principal technique. So I teach the principal technique, and you can run it out in whatever your faith fucking is. I don't give a shit, so long as it serves others and you're not going to destroy the goddamn planets.
Like I did with Brad. That lady came over for a tarot reading. I gave her a tarot reading. We became friends. She was like, "Hey, let's go do an investigation, at Centralia." All right, let's go do it. I want to, I don't get out much. Let's go do some witchcraft in a mountain that's freaking burning. Let's go do it,
Right.
I get up there and I got all my stuff, and it's like conjuration. I call forth spirits of the air, and all of a sudden it just picks up. Like the heat goes, and there's just a nice cool wind, and you can tell Robin was like, "Holy shit!" The wind picked up. You know what I mean? Like you could tell she was surprised, and that's what happens when you converse with these energies. It happens, It's awesome.
It's the terminology and how we do it, though. This is again where we go back to tradition. Just because we are experiencing a thing, okay, we're experiencing that moment of interaction, like the moment of power when you called the spirit, right? You called the general spirits, like the unnamed ones, right? And depending on what cultures you're drawn to, depending on what your divinations are, like the individual should do a divination on what path of magic they should study. There's the magic of their blood, where they come from, where their ancestors come from, the types of paths of practice of the spirits that walk with them, generally speaking, right? But this isn't to be an appropriation talk where you're taking culture out of form, where, if you're trying to, amass different courts and spirits and obligations and shit like that to all the things in all the world, right?
Right.
Then you have to go before all of the spirits of the world in different ways. You have to find a way to get your successes. You have to find a way to get those connections done. And this is why I love what Keith is up to, is because he does that. He has the table for the Santos. He has the table for He's got the stuff for the Palo spirits. He's got all of the stuff. He does all of the work. He elevates everybody.
I know, I study it, Keith.
Yeah. It's when the time comes and the classes and stuff and everything gets more robust, he's the guy I want teaching the sorcery classes, because I want his foundations instilled in our membership. And I want to get his stuff up to be, like, I'd like to get him to be the headmaster. I'd like to be able to pay him to be the headmaster of our academy. It's just we have to build the foundations, right? We've built the product. We've tested it in the marketplace with the billionaires and the all the money and all the... Yeah, I proved that it can work at a really ridiculous scale. Like, that's not the problem. The problem now is to find individuals like yourself, or that are not as good as, like, Keith or other people that are in the field, like Jason with the Taoism. Like, he spent 9 years in a temple in China, learned, like, in the schools of magic in China. Like, that's where he learned it, was there. 4,000 years of an unbroken history he got an experience with. That's not something that you get in the West, right? But to get those experiences, you have to be able to connect to those individuals. Or like Mel Strangefellow, who's the head of the Order of St. Cyprian, right? Apostolic transmission, 2,000-year-old lineage, right? Comes out of the Eastern Orthodoxy.
Right.
And he's got the goat skull on his altar. He does the sacraments. He does all of those things. And he's working with the devils and the demons and the spirits and the angels and all those things through a lineage, right? And so, but the thing is, as you come to learn who these people are and what they represent and where those orders are, because you can understand the parallels and the traditions and the spells that they're teaching, you can see what you're drawn to, or you can see the parallels between ancient magic, Chinese magic, Western magic, folk magic, Icelandic stuff, all the different cultures in the regions, right? Like, there's that one line in the Curse Tablets and Binding Spells of the Ancient World by John G. Gagger, right? He's got quickly. Oh, but and then you've got in Chinese magic, quickly by the law, right? You've got two separate cultures, ancient Greece and ancient China.
Same phrase.
Same phrasing. Not for nothing does that exist. But to know the same phrasing exists. It's, you can pull it, like, you could call upon Mercury to do it, right? What Jason was saying is that it's also an entity. It was an entity that they called Juju Laling.
Right.
And in this, you could name it as a spirit, but it's by the law. So it's, what is the law? What is the name of the law that you're calling upon, right? Is it quickly by the law of rhythm, by the law, by the law of narration, by the law of formation, by the law of, creative form, like, whatever it is, you're able to connect to these forces, and you're able to establish a path of practice that allows you to either use it to challenge or to protect. Like, what are you protecting by your challenge? By the challenge that you're issuing, what are you establishing as the ground you're taking? Right? And in this case, you're challenging the state, saying you have every right, if you have a medical marijuana card, to grow 5 plants of your own, in your own home unmolested, regardless of what state you live in.
Exactly.
That is a very simple argument that can either ruin you and a million other people, or it could be the catalyst for a new generation.
And that's why I do it, because, I found out there's over 2 million patients in the state, and I didn't see any of them standing up. You know what I mean? How many of them are getting whooped like this? How many of them are being entrapped like this?
Right.
How many of them are getting their freedoms violated like this? You know what I mean? It's not fair. You're a patient. You count on this stuff. You know what I mean? We're playing with people's lives. You can't just be like, it's money for me.
Right.
That's not, no, I won't stand for it. It's not right. And if I don't stand for it, I've always taught my children to stand up for what they believe, all right? What would I look like if I went in there and told you? No, that's not me. It's not me. It's bigger than me. I'm just the vessel. The vessel. You know what I mean? That's all I am.
You know, and again, you went through and became a priest, and by becoming a priest, you forego certain rights of normal action. What we're talking about here is I did my ULC stuff. I've had interactions with priests that makes it very interesting over my years. So I'm not officially in any religion. I just have had very orthodox expressions
Right.
in very unorthodox ways. So like it's the profane entry into the church. You've done it the legitimate way.
Yeah.
And for you to choose these paths after going through these profound methods of faith, but you're still upholding the principles of the kingdom, right? You're not violating it. You're the extension of the vessel of the kingdom, yes, right? You've died, you've come back. You've died, like you're the goddamn Energizer Bunny when it comes to like life.
You know, like I said, I was put here for a reason. My reason isn't my thing is my deal ain't done yet. You know.
Right.
But,
I mean,
I
if
don't know.
you work with me long enough, you realize it'll never end, and this will be an eternal journey.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. It's like that's what we were working on with Daniel the other day. It's like it's an eternal concept. So if you've got a project that spans 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, 30 years, fuck it, doesn't matter in the landscape of eternity. You know, the fucking church and the Pope and all the things, right? They've been trying to get people to behave for the last 2,000 years. The people that don't behave get murdered. Like, how insane is that shit? And so...
It goes a lot deeper than that, though, because yes, I went through as a Christian pastor. I walked that walk. You know what I mean? I still hold those laws and stuff today. But I also went into Judaism.
Right.
And I uphold that law. I know that tradition. You know what I mean? I steer more towards that tradition because of King Solomon.
Right.
But what a lot of people don't understand is even the Jewish people used cannabis. They used it on their altars. There's an altar that was found 3 years ago, I think it was, and they tested the substance on the altar. Guess what the substance was? THC. THC.
Yeah.
So it's in, you know what I mean? It's in the book. Didn't you know that wrong? It's in the book. They worship their gods with cannabis. The Hebrew word being cannabosum. They took it out in Casio then. Think about that. I did nothing wrong.
No, I don't think you did, and I think that one of the things that I'd like to do with the state at the state level, especially if we're able to set up these kinds of training facilities with blacksmiths, with professionals in the trades, if we can get a school set up, right, where we can turn it into a legitimate public service and public education program, teaching mentorship, teaching the skills and the trades of the thing, with people in those trades and things, demonstrating how it works, there is no reason why we wouldn't be able to create medical grow facilities to be able to give away medicines to the people that can't afford it, especially during their study of what to do when they get back to their own countries and rebuild their fucking infrastructures.
And that's another thing. Let's talk about that, okay? Because let's look at the grow facilities out here. Most of them are using PGRs, plant growth regulators, right? That's why their buds are so fat. That's why they're getting more weight. They're getting more money for the weight. You see what I'm saying? It's being a medical patient, relying on medical marijuana. I don't want my weed full of PGRs because PGRs are known to be carcinogenic, meaning cause cancer. I already got heart disease. What the fuck do I want cancer for? You know what I mean? Like, no, what I was growing and what I was putting in my plants to grow them plants, there was no PGRs added. We're talking about the state of my health. You know what I mean? And I'm doing what's best for my health. Who are you to get into the way of that?
And that is an abomination. The
It
state
really is. It's against humanity. It's against our rights.
It's an enormous human rights violation. It's like, yeah, you're trying to increase the yield of crops, but find alternative ways to do it that aren't going to be known carcinogens. And that's the
Thank you.
thing about 90% of the American diet is that most of the food we eat is contaminated. Most of the shit that we're doing is toxic, and our state doesn't care.
That's why they
The
feed you fluoride in your water, so it calcifies your pineal gland, so you can't have that connection with the gods. I don't drink water, so I'm not getting the fluoride. I
well,
live off of this thing. Oh, you
well,
can't see it.
that's got that stuff in it though. Like,
And little amounts, you know what I mean?
yeah, I mean,
Just
I drink bottled water, not the shit out of this tap, because that stuff is gross.
right.
I mean, it's fine if it's in tea or coffee most of the time because you can flavor that shit. But no, I mean, all a normal glass of water should evaporate over like a month, right? There was in my old apartment. Um, my mom pulled a glass of water out, and it was gelatinous after 6 weeks. Still,
Yeah.
still gooey, still like solid, like slimy almost. Like it was like that was in the water.
And see, that's the thing. You know, because I've told you, and most of my family and friends that are close to me know. But a lot of other people don't, I don't think yet. That 10-year journey I took through religion and coming out the other end. In 2020, I totally changed my lifestyle. Like, I got off of all pharmaceuticals because it wasn't working for me. I tried that. 40 years of my life, I tried their way.
Yeah.
I ended up with problems. They fed me medicine that made me heavier, which in turn made my back worse. You know what I mean? Like, so looking out for my well-being, I cut off all pharmaceuticals and went all natural, relying on nothing but Mother Nature. And now I find myself in this position for the way I live. You know what I mean? Like, I made that transition. I did it your way. There's no reason to reprimand me because I'm not going back to that way.
Yeah, there's that way doesn't work. I've got a chronic pain history since 2014 on record, but it's been much longer than that, right? I've had the steroid injections, the nerve ablations. Like I was on the pharmaceuticals for years. I couldn't work normally. That's how I got good at doing this remote business shit. Is because I had to figure out how to get my staff to do the thing without me being there. I needed 8 people to do my job.
Right. I mean, I was on 9 different medications, bro, for, blood thinning and cholesterol and heart medicine and stuff like that. No.
Yeah.
Now, I know what my ancestors did. My ancestors, instead of taking aspirin, they ate hot peppers. You know what I mean? Hot peppers thins your blood. Okay, I love hot peppers. Let's replace some of this stuff with hot peppers, garlic, cilantro, things like there's Mother Earth will take care of you if you just give her that chance.
It's food is medicine. This is again goes into the Ayurveda stuff. And if we want to learn their words for the principle, we can study those traditions. But if we know those words and what they represent, why do we need to be a part of those traditions if we apply those methodologies in the same basic premise, but we're creating our own? Again, sorcery, not tradition, is different. Sorcery is the skill set. Tradition is what you apply it to.
There you go.
This is a skill set we teach. This isn't for you to go and you can be a priest of whatever god. You can be a Satanist and be a challenger against the state and the adversary of what would be detrimental to mankind. You can do there is no problem with that. But that's an individual choice. Sorcery itself is the technique study. Right? Where wizardry is the wisdom behind it to know when to apply those techniques, sorcery is the technique itself without any bullshit between you and the source of creation.
That's it. That's exactly it.
So the more we get to that focus point, right, the less evil we see. I don't know. At least that's the idea anyway. Is like we're not trying to be like, oh my god, they're the scary demon conjuring thing. Like, that's the smallest part.
That excites me, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun, because it's like, oh my god, somebody new. Or it's like, hey, I haven't seen you in like 6 months. Where the hell have you been? Oh, I've just been floating around the different cosmos. Like, this is your new job. Like, you've got these relationships that are just as real, just as scary, if not more so, than human
Right.
ones. I will follow the gods before I listen to man.
Thank you. Just like I
They're
another Earth. I trust in man.
yeah, they win. They're bigger, they're older, they're weirder, the technology, the everything. No, them gods. The shit where we're not. Like I'm just a tiny speck in all of this. Like however many billions of people are on the planet, but it's still connected into that formative energy, right?
You're a divine spark amongst 1,000 stars, million stars, gazillion stars.
Right.
You're just one divine spark.
Right. And it's that encouragement, it's that illumination.
Hello, Lucifer.
And if we have to bring the entire goddamn planet up a vibration or 10, why not do it with money and promise and passion and purpose?
Exactly.
You know, we can profit the whole way up. It's just, you know, like there's an entire movement we could birth, just profits for profit.
Right?
The good aspects of seeking things for profit.
Right.
Without having to worry about, like, oh my god, what we're doing is a disaster for something else. No.
Yep.
No, like, it. Just because one community group elevates itself doesn't mean that the rest of them should be degenerated as a result. You know? But as money moves back and forth, as the economy changes, as people pull money out of the government, because the government's not doing anything to unify the people, just further divide the fucking thing,
Yep.
there is a broken structure. So we have to come up with an internal way to regulate transaction between people. And this is where I wanted to have a currency in-house, so that you could have money that was already available to you in the same kind of way that the dwarves and the golems and the gringotts or whatever it is, right? You've got currency based on coinage, based on weight of mineral, right? Well, you have to have mineral rights in order to be able to have weighted minerals as your foundation, right? Like, is 10 pieces of azurite worth a Super 7 the size of your fist? Depends on what you need it for.
Right.
You know, it's like, are you going to extract the tin out of the mineral? Are you going to extract the, like, stibnite, for example, right? If you heat that stuff up, you can get antimony, right? Which is one of the alchemical things. So if you calcify stibnite, reduce it down, you're going to get a chemical that you can use in other chemical processes.
Right. It's alchemy. Love alchemy.
We do, absolutely. It you know, it's like hearing some of the business owners talk about, oh, they need the individual needs to go through a state of dissolution before that they can form into their purpose. It's like there's an alchemist. Her name is, let's see if I can pull up my chat real quick. I'll do it on my phone. Oh, everything's frozen. I don't want to lose it real quick. But
My computer.
there is, her name was Anna, right? She's like, let me know if you'd like to chat. I'm curious about what you do and the intersection between your genius and mine.
Okay.
And her thing is about alchemical artist transformation. So she doodles, and through doodling, you can transform your life and yourself and your all of the things.
Right.
So I think that's an absolutely beautiful thing, and I look forward to working with her more, and to see where we can come together in all of these things. But you know, it's like we've gone on for just over an hour today. I'm going to let these fine folks go. Do you have any closing thoughts on what people should think about in relation to these things, so that it does, you know, it's like as they become adversarial, as they become a challenging thing, like the information inside of them challenges the authority.
Think about this, right? Because this weighs heavy on just my mind. What kind of world are your grandkids going to live in? Not just your grandkids, but your grandkids' grandkids. You know what I mean? Like, a couple centuries down the road. What kind of world are they going to live in when you have the opportunity to stand up and be an adversary today and make things right? You have a voice. Join other voices. Get it correct.
Yeah. This is not something that we do alone. This is not something that it takes the collective.
It does.
It takes Muslims. It takes Christians. It takes Jews. It takes pagans. It takes Luciferians. It takes Satanists. It takes chaos magicians. It takes everybody that doesn't fit into the way that the world is being built.
Right.
To come together to figure out a dialogue that will help to change it for the better.
Exactly.
But we can only do that if there's a change in national dialogue and if there's a change in international policy. Because the U.S. needs help on an international level. It needs to be classified not as a first world country in certain states. Like Mississippi is worse than a third world country.
Michigan.
Fucking Michigan is the worst example of what happens with an infrastructure collapse.
Yes.
Over something as simple as somebody fucked up at the water treatment plant, and so as a result, the entire city of Flint is fucked. All the piping needs to be dug up. All of the old materials that are from generations previous, that we're still relying on an infrastructure system that is corrupt at best. The dangers of what to make something stable, like all those pipings need to be replaced. But what are they going to replace them with? Who's going to do the labor to do that? Right?
Right.
You know, back in the day, they built the national road networks with prisoners and with immigrants and with soldiers. I like the idea of the Army's soldiers building our infrastructure.
Right. Right.
That's a great thing. Like the Army Corps of Engineers, bring those guys out to fix this. Don't privatize that shit. Keep it national, so that way there is a reason for service that isn't war.
Like you have in California. You've seen that video, right? That's sad, dude.
Yeah. There's a thing called the California Conservation Corps. They go around and they try to fight fires and stuff like that. And it's a paid organization, but it works for the state in order to preserve the state.
Right.
More states need that.
Exactly, I agree.
When my friend in high school, her name was Melanie, she needed a career path, right? That's what she joined. We were training on all of the trees that grew in Northern California. Like, that was her flashcards. Like, I showed a picture of the tree, she would learn what it was, and we did that. And that's how I learned all the trees, like Quercus agrifolia, like oak tree, right?
Right.
That's the only one I remember from, 20 years ago? 30 years ago? 20 years ago now? Almost 20 years. 2003 I graduated. She was in 2002. 20 years. 20 years.
That's how I learned Hebrew alphabet. Flashcards.
Oh, yeah. I took a semester of biblical Hebrew back when I attempted college. It's not a good thing. But the guy that was doing the Hebrew class, he was writing his own textbook. So it was a really, he'd give us worksheets and stuff. It was a really weird class.
Okay.
But I mean, it's like I do the same thing. It's like I'll give you guys samples of my own work, which is tested against these different things, and then you'll get to see the overlays and the parallels, which hopefully gets you to learn faster than if you're just reading somebody else. Like they don't have a hand in the industry that they're trying to teach on.
Right.
And again, this is why I think there needs to be a change in the education system, because teachers should be trying to change the discipline they work in, not just wrote courses, but they need to have a vested interest in the material, right? Like how they deliver that material, what they're doing. It needs to change. Infrastructure for medicine needs to change. Education needs to change. Refugees and asylum, all these things need to change. Like, the fuck is the government doing? Greedy motherfuckers.
Yeah, they are. People don't see it. People need to start waking up and seeing it.
It's stupid. It's so stupid. But anyway, final thoughts. I thank you. So if people can wake up, great. we'll be around, right? Like, we're here. We're not going nowhere. Been here. Still here. Not going nowhere.
Died and came back. Still here.
Right? Yeah. So, thanks to everybody that's watching. Hey, check out the new changes over on the Academy of Sorcery official YouTube channel. If you get a chance and you want to learn like specific techniques or like different things, those videos and stuff, because of Muhammad, are getting changed over.
Yeah, he's doing a good job.
Yeah, he really is. Now we got 65 subscribers in less than 9 hours.
Yeah, I was just over there this morning, and you only had like 38, so you went from 38 to 65 in like just a matter of a couple hours.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal.
Right. That's like, hell yeah! Hell yeah! And then this video will go over there, so that way it gives them content, and it's like, this is where we exist, is in between, but it's still this conversation, and we are trying to figure out how to walk it out.
Right.
You know, so there's an open invite in the community for those members that have an idea, that don't hate what we're talking about, that actually want to participate. If this is a fight you want to be a part of, if this is a challenge you want to undertake, if you want to learn a sorcery, right? That's only part of it. It's everything else that we do every day. It's these conversations. It's trying to get the mind right. It's trying to find those opportunities. So, anyway, stay safe, everybody, and remember, don't be evil, and we'll chat with you all later.